Hello, folks. Today is May 5th, 2025. And I see Dave. How you doing, Dave? 2 days. And Wolfie. How you doing, guy? Dave M. How you doing? Good to see you. Scott H. Hi, Red. How you doing, buddy? I'm alive. Laughing at the world. Christina Morris. Good afternoon, Red and all. God bless you, dear. BSJ. Howdy, Red. Scott, about time. There's a storm in Titusville. I'll tell you what, the sun's shining over by me, dude. I'm all the way over by Alabama, though. Tim Peroni, how you doing? Well, today's subject is Chicago outfit tough guys. Now, you can't say, because they were different eras. If you want to go back to the Capone era, Capone was a tough guy. Anybody can, I don't know, brawl the way he brawled and get his face cut with a razor and let it go is a tough guy. He was a tough guy. And there were tough guys around him. When all these men were younger, in their younger years, like Tony Accardo, he was a tough guy too. There's a reason why they called him Joe Batters. He liked using a baseball bat. And I think Capone took to that. But if you want to get past that era, and you want to go into the 42 gang or whatever, there were tough guys there. And there were tough guys that actually went past that era, and tough guys in my era that I knew. It's Chucky Nicoletti and Milwaukee Phil. They were both tough guys, really tough guys. They didn't need they didn't need something like this. They didn't need a pistol. They could do it themselves. Knees, knuckles, whatever it took. But some of the tough guys that of my era, I never had any problems with them. I mean, they talk about Sam Giancana, or not Sam Giancana, Sammy G Stefano. He wasn't a tough guy. He just had tough guys around him. John Wallace, how you doing there? Hope you're having a good day. From the Duke City. Okay. But yeah, Tony was a tough guy. Tony Spilaccio, he was a tough guy. Anybody grew up on the streets like he did, robbing, beating people up, or the story about his brothers saying, if you can knock my brother out, I'll give you so much money, go over and fight him. And he used to take people on like that. And he was what we call a one-punch knockout, because usually one punch did it with him. He got one good punch in. He was a little guy. He got one punch in going up, and usually knock your brains loose because it was an uppercut. Sometimes he knocked people out on one punch, but most of the time, no matter what was, when they got hit, they went down and they stayed down. And as he grew older, he carried a 38 in the small of his back. So if this didn't get you, the pistol would. He was a tough guy. He was in a lot of fights. That's how I measure tough guys. I don't know how you measure them or whatever, but the guys that can go into fights and over a period of time. And hey, Lonnie, how you doing, guy? Those are the people that I consider tough guys. Scott H. I honestly have only been in a couple fist fights when I was a kid. Not that I was afraid, it just didn't. You didn't have the opportunity. Well, it's not an opportunity; it's a happenstance. My particular case, I was in a lot of fights, but you win some, you lose some. I wasn't a winner every time. I got my butt kicked quite a few times. I really did. The first time I really was in a bad fight was after I joined the Marine Corps. I was 17 though. And that's where I really learned how to fight. I mean, I scrapped before then, but nothing like that before then. Big Tuna, good announcement. 26 of us in here. Hit the like button. I didn't think we'd get 26. I mean, I was watching, it was kind of slow here. Thank you, Big Tuna. But at any rate, so much for me. I want to go into the tough guys that we knew or we saw. And I'll tell you that they didn't necessarily have to be big. Some were, but some were short, and they kicked like a mule. And one had a nickname called a mule. They called him a mule. And because he had a mule kick of a hand. And he was a one-punch wonder. It was, bang. He hit you and you're down. And that was Filamato. That was Jimmy Kozo's father-in-law. His mother was Tanine, or his wife was Tanine. And Filamato, I forgot the name of his wife, but Jimmy Kozo's wife was Tanine. At any rate, Phil was a knockdown. Another guy was Dick Hoyt, but Dick Hoyt was a big guy. He was maybe 320 pounds, 6'1", 6'2", and he had no problem knocking anybody out. As a matter of fact, he had hands like paws, and he had arms like my legs. If he reached over and grabbed you by an arm, it's like an anaconda grabbing you. It was bad. And there were other people, and like Tim Peroni says here, Joey Lombardo was tall, intimidating. Joey wasn't as intimidating as you might think. Maybe he was when he was a kid, but he was stocky. And like many of the guys, I mean, going all the way back through history, all these guys were boxers. They amateur boxed, never professional, but they amateur boxed. And they knew what they were doing. They're not the kind of guys you want to run into in an alley and have an argument with or anywhere with, because they were able to take care of business. Harry Ellman, yeah, he was a tough guy. Very tough guy. I mentioned him, Scott, earlier. Man, Sab was not a fighter at all. He kept people around him that were tough. He wasn't a tough guy. A slap in the head and he'd go down. That was it. That's why I kept tough guys around him. That's why I had a pistol on him all the time. He intimidated people. He'd say bad things to people that would intimidate him. So, and he had a reputation too. But like I said, the real tough guys, Wayne Bach was definitely on the list of tough guys. But don't forget, he was a center for the Chicago Cardinals, which was, the opposite of the, at that time, it was on the south side, and the north side was the Chicago Bears. But how about Frank C.? Which Frank C. are you talking about? I don't know. Big Tuna 815. That's what I was talking about. Tough guys that can fight don't need a pistol. They don't need a blackjack. They can walk 1-on-1, maybe 2-on-1, 3-on-1. They can walk into a group and they can take care of whatever they have to do. they really don't need. They're tough guys, but some tough guys that I saw, they like to have an advantage. You think he means Frank Collada? I was told. Now I don't know. I never saw the guy, but I was told that he was a bull. He was very much a bull. Um, he could go into a brawl and come out because he could take a licking. I mean, he was tough. So I would say, yeah, he was a tough guy, a very tough guy. Vincent Inserno, the Saint, he was a tough guy. As a matter of fact, if you want to reference Collada, Frank Collada, reference the fact of people that he talked about. Whenever he talked about somebody, he said he was a man's man. That meant he was a tough guy. He was able to take care of himself and others if necessary. But there are a lot of them. I mean, a whole lot of them. And as time passed up by, so did they. When they got older, they couldn't move around the same way. So they had young guys with them. I remember Peanuts Piansko. He was a real big guy. And when he was younger, he was tough. When I saw him 68, 70 years old, he wasn't that tough. He was tough. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't that tough. So the tough guys that were there usually grew up on the street. Maybe you guys, you want to mention a couple of them that you think. And I'll tell you what I think, in my opinion. If you want to put in the comments, go ahead here. I know Tim Peroni mentioned several people. And I think Lurch, Laurie Newman, he was a tough guy. Laurie Newman is what his name was. But he was not only big and intimidating, but he had a mentality that was, I'll rip your arm off and beat you with it. And that's a tough guy mentality. Now, Frankie Schweiss was in his late 50s, early 60s, like Joey Lombardo was. And he wasn't that tough when he was that old. When he was 29, 30 years old, John Flood told me he was one tough son of a gun. He'd take on 4 or 5 cops. He was very, very, very tough. People that are intimidating by their looks are not necessarily tough guys. Tough guys don't say too much. They just walk in and do what they got to do. So it is what it is. Tim Peroni, you're talking about Laurie Newman, and his father was very rich. He didn't need to be like he was. Yeah, that's what I'm told. I didn't. Oh. Ace, that's a matter of opinion. Larry was there was something wrong with Larry mentally. I mean, he was off. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you ever listened to Frank Collada, but the truth of the matter is Laurie Newman was in the psych ward at the prison hospital. That's where he was, in the psych ward. Now, he was in the psych ward for a reason. I mean, we can use all kinds of euphemisms, like his elevator didn't go to the top, or he wasn't all there. He had a high IQ, but there's something definitely wrong with him. I've heard so many stories about that guy. He was kind of, he wasn't there. And as far as Frank Schweiss goes, Frank was dangerous, but he wasn't that tough when he got older. Scott H. Frank, I believe you mean Collada, told me he was always kept a 38 ready whenever Newman was around, Laurie Newman. I don't doubt that. You might have needed it. Yes, he was psychopath. He was definitely a psychopath. He loved killing for nothing, but he also had the strength of a psychopath. So sick people like that can do a lot of things, really. At any rate, let's get a little bit past over to the side of that and talk about the Calabrese crew. And in my opinion, Frank Calabrese Sr. was definitely a tough guy. No doubt in my mind about it. And also in my mind, his brother, Frank Calabrese. Or not Frank. Okay, help me out, folks. What was his... I'm trying to think of Frank Calabrese. Nick Calabrese. He was definitely a tough guy. Yes. And believe it or not, Kurt doesn't go around talking about it, but Kurt was a tough guy. And Frank Jr. was a tough guy. He was the Golden Gloves. I mean, all these guys fought. They were all good. Everyone. Nick was Frank Calabrese's Senior's brother. And they all were tough. I believe he did a stint in the Army, if I'm not mistaken. But it just was the way it was. Got a lot of Franks. But Frankie Schweiss was, like I said, he was a very, very dangerous man. When he was a kid, he was Milwaukee Phil's bodyguard. And he used to jump out and jump into 2 or 3. I heard stories about ATF agents. He jumped into 2 or 3 ATF agents when they were arresting Milwaukee Phil because they weren't dressed in something that identified him. And it just was what it was. Yes, he was. He was a Navy sailor. But guess what? He had the discipline. He had the military discipline. And that's good. Big Tuna 815. Red, who had the edge? Grand Avenue crew or Calabrese crew? Grand Avenue crew. I don't know why they did all the heavy work that they did going back to ham bone, which we call pork chop. I did anyway. Some other people did. I don't know why. And that was in 1970. But that's just the way. I think it was because La Piatra was their boss. They weren't golfed into the Grand Avenue crew. I would say they were just as lethal, though. And that Taylor Street, that whole mess down there was, they were tough guys. Marshall Cofano, he was a little guy, a very, very small guy. But everybody told me he was a dangerous son of a gun. He was really dangerous, that he hurt people. And his prison, his cell partner in prison, Alvin Johnson Rogers, told me one time, he says, man, you don't want to mess with that guy. And he said, his hands are so fast. He plays handball. I guess he used to play handball with him in prison. And if he got mouthy with or something, he'd just give him a slap in the face. And he said he'd knock him down just from a slap. And Rogers wasn't exactly skinny. He was about 180 pounds and 6'1". So he watched him. He was afraid of him. He feared him. But it was who it was. The tough guys were the tough guys. And, you know, historically, going back anywhere in history, yeah, Scott, you could talk about Sam Giancana. He was a tough guy too. But when he got older, he wasn't. But when he was young, he was. Trent, last known outfit murder, 2006, Anthony Zizzo. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about a murder, but were those guys. I'm talking about tough guys, guy. Yes, a public announcement is 420. Thank you, Jim Jagger. Tim, I didn't know Albert Taco, but Albert Taco was a tough guy. I just started to say, and I'll go back to say it. Anybody that grew up or came up to the point where they became a boss of a crew, they were tough guys. They were very tough guys. I don't know who you're talking about, Trent, but Butch English and Chuck English were both tough guys, big guys. They're tough. They're tough on the streets. Joe Arnold was a big guy and a tough guy. I mean, you don't get to that position by being a nobody. I mean, these guys are big. That's part of the Rush Street crew. But a lot of that stuff was incorporated in the Grand Avenue crew from Rush Street. And what La Piazza didn't take, Grand Avenue did. But you might say that Grand Avenue kind of died after Jimmy Coso died. That was the end of it. I mean, it's still there. Butch Blassie, yeah, Butch Blassie was a tough guy. Tony Accardo wouldn't have had him around like that unless he was. He didn't want anybody that couldn't take care of things. He was a tough guy. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I was just going to bring him up, Trent. I started to bring him up. I knew Albie when he was like 18, 19 years old, and maybe 20. He used to walk the neighborhood with a baseball bat. He wasn't that tough of a guy for me. I mean, I didn't see him as a tough guy. A one-on-one, I don't think he would have lasted back in the day. As he got older, he really worked out and he got in shape because he realized that he was at a disadvantage. And in his 30s, he was like Mikey Switek. Mikey Switek was one tough son of a gun. He was very, very tough. But Albie, he was what he was. Truth of the matter is, he went down to Florida now, and he's gone. His eyesight is bad. There's a lot of things that are bad, are missing about Albie. He's not able to do what he is. So when you hear all these people say, or different people like are on shows like mine that say, well, who's running things now? Or they say, this guy's running that crew, or this guy's the boss in Chicago. There is no more boss in Chicago. That's it. It's over. It's past. Nobody kicks up to anybody else. There is no discipline. There's a bunch of criminals out on the streets. That's it. Oh, yeah, we got some people that took their money and invested in carpet cleaning, and they invested in the stock exchange and things like that. They're all legitimate. If they did time, it's over. That's it. How you doing, guy? Detective story homicide cases. Knife guy heard. I think you're talking about Albie, aren't you? Joe Yupa. He was a boxer also. Trent, they say he was the most dangerous man in Chicago. Trent, I don't know who's telling you that, but he wasn't. And Bobby, he was Vena's guy, but he wasn't that tough. That three-way trio, it didn't even impress me at all. Not at all. Not when I was a young man, and not when I got in my 40s. It didn't even bother me. And I don't think I'd have needed a pistol to take care of things either back then. George Wilson, how you doing, buddy? Hello, Redden Crew. Hit that like button. Come on, guys, hit that like button. I need all the likes I can get. I appreciate it. So anyway, that's what I look at when I look at the tough guys back in the day and the tough guys of today. I'm sure they're out there, but you won't find them in the outfit anymore because the outfit's gone. The outfit is a piece of history. And the Italian mafia in Italy and the Italian mafia in New York and in Philadelphia and all the other cities, it's gone. The mafia's gone. The outfit's gone too. It's dead. But those tough guys, there's memories. And believe me, if you grab somebody off the street, like Hambone, if you grab him off the street, which they did, and you put him in a car and you take him away, chances are that something's going to happen. And if you're strong enough to do that, he's never going to come back, which it did happen. Do you know Tommy Dye from Taylor Street? No, I don't. I really don't. What years was he around, Trent? Lenny Cafano, he was a tough guy. A very tough guy. The Cafanos were like the Splachos. They were tough guys. It was just that way. You know, I'd never heard of a Tommy Dye. And I don't see anybody by that name on the internet. So he must have been, he wasn't, let me see if he's a boxer. Tommy Dye. I don't see a Tommy Dye on here. He wasn't really that important, whoever he was. But if you're talking, these guys are much, much later, and I really don't know about them, Trent. Tommy Dye's not his real name. He was on a White Soft Underbelly podcast. He had the snitch on a corrupt cop, Howie Mandel. Don't know about him. I really don't. Do you know which crew he was with? If he was with a crew. Jimmy Marcello, he was a tough guy. He definitely was a tough guy. You don't survive prison like that unless you're a tough guy. Definitely. Detective story homicide cases. He was tied up with Steve Manning, Red. I doubt you would know about him. He's not even really known on the streets. Thank you. Are you talking about Tommy Dye? Okay. Yeah, from the 80s and 90s on Taylor Street. Believe me, I wouldn't know. I was gone. I left in September 15th, 1988. And Detective Story just said, yeah, Tommy Dye was about that time. But no, I didn't know any of those guys. You're younger than I am, Trent. Matter of fact, I don't know any Trents that are older than 50. I've never known a Trent that was older than 50. This would be now. Smooth operator, how you doing, guy? Haven't seen you in a while. Good seeing you. Hit that like button. Thank you. He's got thumbs up. He wants everybody to hit the like button too. Very nice. Thank you. John Ditter, are the people still collecting unpaid debts? I don't know if they are, but if they are, they're not using tough stuff because they were told not to by superiors that were in the outfit, but they don't have any superiors anymore. So if there's somebody out there collecting a debt because he loaned some money, he's on his own. And chances are, all you need to do is pick up the phone. It's not like the old days. It's not like that at all. Ferriola in his younger years was a force to be reckoned. He was a Cicero man and just a definite force to be reckoned with. When he made it to the top, by the time he made it there, he knew what he was doing. Another one was Mario Di Stefano. Mario Di Stefano was one tough guy, very one tough. Big Tuna 815, they say a lot of things. There's a lot of stories. Okay, Detective Story has a something to tell you, Trent. Trent, nobody knew anything about Tommy Dye until he did that white, soft underbelly interview. Personally, I wouldn't put a lot of credence into what he had to say. Just FYI. Detective Homicide really knows what he's doing. He's former law enforcement, and he really knows what he's doing. But I would listen to what he has to say, Trent. Steve Manning sounding so terrifying that he would put some people inside industrial-sized meat grinders. I don't know. And he did testify against them. You know, some of this stuff is legend. I don't know if it's true or not. And I try to separate the legends from the facts, the real things. Steve Manning probably was awful. I never heard of him. Has anybody else heard of Steve Manning? Well, I'm waiting for an answer. If everybody else has heard of Steve Manning, I'll address No-Nose DeFrancio. Well, he didn't get his name by No-Nose by being not a tough guy. He was a tough guy. He got his nose cut when he was breaking a plate glass window on Michigan Avenue, and it was a smash and grab. But he was a tough guy. Definitely was a tough guy. Steve Manning was a corrupt cop. I don't know. Never heard of him. Steve Mandel. Okay. We got a Manning. We got a Mandel. Never heard of either one of them. BSJ. I've heard of Archie Manning. I haven't heard of any of them. Really, any of the Mannings. I didn't know any Mannings. I didn't know of them either. And if they're associated with a crew, I don't know which one. But you could be out there on the street. There's probably a million tough guys out on the street. I used to talk this. I'm talking way back in the 70s, like 74, 75, 76. I used to tell people all the time, there are people out there. They're a lot tougher than these collectors. They'll kick your ass. There's some real bad people out there. Some are very dangerous. But I also found out this. He was those people. I knew a lot of them, and they were tough. But the outfit, usually when they sent a collector around, it was two people. They didn't take any chances. One-on-one, I'm sure they could take care of business. I know when I needed muscle, maybe 2 or 3 times, they brought 2 or 3 guys. And I didn't ask for help very often. I think I only asked for help once in my life, and it wasn't muscle, something else. Detective Story says, Detective Story Cases says, he used both names, Manning and Mandel. Okay. La Pietra, the Hook, he was a dangerous guy. He was a tough guy. When he got older, just like the rest, he got mellowed because he really couldn't do the things he could. Richard Kane, yes, he was a tough guy, a very tough guy. He was not only a cop, but he was outfit. And nobody could be around CM Giancana without being tough. It just didn't happen. That's the way it was. So, but there are a lot of other tough guys, like I said, that they were not outfit. And chances are they would have, made short work of some of these other guys. Now, I remember the days of, especially since he collected for me, Dino Jeeps. They told me when he was a young guy, he was a really bad son of a gun. And I've seen some newspaper clippings about him that said when he was like 30 years old or 35 years old, he beat the heck out of this guy and he beat the heck out of that guy. Chris Bulahanis, George Bulahanis, the Bulahanis family. Those guys were tough. But I remember talking to Chris, and at one time I asked him, he beat this guy really bad. He jumped over the bar, and he beat this guy very bad. Chris Bulahanis was a tough son of a gun. But I said, Chris, I've never seen you move that fast. You're tough, man. And he said, I was scared. He said, that guy was pretty big. And he said, he said he was going to kill me. And he went all over him. And it was all over like in, I'd say maybe 15 seconds. It was done. He was a tough guy. But while we're talking about cops, did Mandel go to prison? He cut a man up at a storefront. I don't know. I have no idea, Michael Hacker. I don't know if he went to prison. But if you want to talk about tough cops that, got in trouble, Durso and Gargano. Tommy Durso and Mikey Gargano. They were tough guys. Very tough guys. They ran a combination of two of them. They used to rip off dope dealers. They used to do anything they wanted to do. And they were tough guys. I knew somebody related to Mikey Gargano. Bambi, Palermo, happy Monday. Fellow mainstreamers, happy Monday, Bambi. Good to see you here. Hit that like button, sweetheart. Subscribe. I need all the help I can get. Good to see you, Bambi. Hey, Red. And going just turned in. I don't know what you're talking about, Tim. You just tuned in. Okay. Good to see you. Mandel was on death row. Definitely had to fight for his life. Yeah, but I'm talking about tough guys that were like outfit guys or something like that. He wasn't. Is Rocky Lombardo still alive? I don't know if he is or not. But Trent, there's a this detective's story homicide cases says to you, I know quite a bit about Manning. If you want to reach out, Trent, reach out to him at Detective Stories, and he would know. He was a cop. Bambi, the New York guys ain't nothing on Chicago or the Midwest in brutality. Just your opinion. I would agree with you 1,000%. New York guys were, 2 shots in the back of the head. Chicago used to torture people to death. I mean, going all the way back, as far as I can remember. Did Ricardo do a lot of killing when he was young? Yes, he did. He did his share. The same as Paul Rica or any of the guys that came up that way when he was young. Yeah, he did a lot. I mean, he was Al Capone's chauffeur and bodyguard at one time. So I'm sure he did a lot of things. Tim Hunt, he's giving me a count. 50 watching, 37 likes. Come on, smash that like button. There we go, Bambi. So many brutal men came out of the Chicago's, especially the mob guys. Yeah, the mob guys is what I'm talking about. Bambi. I was associated with the Grand Avenue crew of the Chicago outfit throughout the 60s and 70s and to September 15th, 1988, when I wore a wire on a very bad man who killed a lot of people, Frank Schweiss. And I wrote a book about it. Actually, the book's about me, but it's all in there. John McShane. Hey, Red. Hi, Chicago. Number one. How you doing? Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much. You got Sam DiStefano. I think you mean Sammy D. Tony Spilaccio, Calabrese. The list goes on. I've named all of those, every one of them. He was tough, but he wasn't the toughest, believe me. I mean, if Harry ran up against, let's say he had an argument with Butch Petroselli, it would have been over in 2 seconds. And Paulie Wellness has got it right here. If the cops put a beating down on a connected guy, there would be repercussions, or would they get away with it? They got away with it. The cops got away with it. I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. One particular one was Joey Lombardo, and you can see in the mugshot, 1980, he was running from a gambling den, and he tossed his little black book and over a fence, and there was a couple of things that happened, but he ran on foot. He was in the car with Incerno and Vincent Incerno, but he made it away. But they finally got him, and when they did get him, they put a beating on him. They put a good beating on him. And there's other ones that I know about that happened. Schweiss was beaten real bad by John Flood. John Flood threw him down a flight of stairs. John Flood was not a Maywood police officer. He was a Cook County police officer, deputy sheriff. And they were having trouble actually printing Schweiss. Not Flood wasn't. He brought him to the room and he arrested him. And these guys were having a problem printing him. And he slapped him around. After he got through slapping him around, he had to transport him to Cook County Jail from the Niles police station, the substation. And he threw him down the stairs. And when he got to the bottom of the stairs, he tuned him up. And he told me about it. I've heard other people talk about it, but he told me about it himself. And John's got to be 90 by now or somewhere in that area. He's on Facebook, I believe. You heard that recently that Harry Ailman Who took out Nicoletti? Who knows? Not me. I don't know. Have I heard from Julie lately? No, I have not. I hope she's doing well, though. I hope she's okay. Lisa, tuned in late, but Lurch was up there in the scary part. Yeah, he was scary, definitely. He was psychotic, a very dangerous person. I don't think he knew pain either, which is the big secret to being a tough guy. Frederick Phil. Hi, Red. Hope all is well. Hope you're at liberty to say how much you had to pay for protection. You can say that if you want. That's what the court said when we did it. But originally, when I set up my deal, I'll tell you exactly what I paid. I was partners. I went in and went to Joey Lombardo and said, I'm opening up a shop and I'm a porn shop and I want to do this. And I'm going to put it here and that. And he put Marshall Cafano with me. The first count that we made of the peep shows in the back room, Marshall looked at the count and he said, there was $1,000 there. And he said, I want $500 a week, every week. The front of the store is yours. Everything else is yours. But the peep shows, I want $500 a week. Now, $500 a week comes to about $1,000 a month. But he wanted it on a weekly basis. And he said, I don't care if you make $10 or $100,000. I want my envelope for $500 every week. And that was the deal we made. Now, as Marshall went away and we separated and everything else, people came to me and they said, different people. And they said, well, while he's gone, we're going to take care of it. We're going to take his money. And it kept going that. It went that way for 18 years. And during that 18-year period, it got rounded off with when Louis Ebley got involved to $1,100 a month. And when I suggested on videotape that it was anything other than money that I owed, I think it was Jeeps Dodino that told me. He did. He told me, he said, you ought to be paying for that hot dog stand, which was my Italian beef stand. You ought to be paying for this. You ought to be paying for that. And I said, whoa. He told me I was lucky. And I said, whoa, that don't work that way. And that's when I called for Schweiss. And Schweiss came to town. Schweiss was told to take care of me by Lombardo when Lombardo went to prison. And when he came in to tell me what was happening, he straightened everybody out. Bambi, you do mob content on your stream, and you ask all mob-associated people who want to talk this question. Do you regret the life? Meaning, if you could change things, would you? I don't regret any part of it. There's not one part I regret. Nothing. It was good to me. I was good to the people. I didn't have any serious problems. Never. I walked away. I'm 76 years old now. I don't know. It really it didn't bother me. Dave and Wolfie, what's in my old store now is Chaparral. It's Little Chaparral. Take a look at it on Wall Street. Yes, it is a good deal. Thank you, Bambi. I've seen your channel before. I think I've watched you. Tim Hunt, did any of the Grandin Ogden mobsters AVENG, Avenger, off to the south, Adventure, that's what you're saying, off to the south side? Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes they do. That's all you're going to get from me, Bambi, is honesty. Because I will tell you something, I am very angry at a lot of people that go on shows or they do these pre-recorded shows and they're using AI, and it's all bullshit. I listen to it and I say, wow, very much so. The history of crime is different than the eras. Yes, it is. Totally. Totally, Bambi. I'm going to have to subscribe to you. Get over there and subscribe to you. I want to listen to more of your shows. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate any questions you got. I'm glad to try and answer them. Bambi Palermo. A lot of these guys like to lie. And you know, yeah, I do. I really do. And if they don't lie, they exaggerate or they tell this truth. There's a guy that I'm having a problem with right now. It was on Facebook. This guy had, he thinks he's a wise guy in his own right. He was a court buff. And on his last broadcast, he called me a chomo, a child molester. And God knows he would never say that to my face. He's not a mobster, but he tries to. He's a wannabe. He talks like, oh, I hung out with this guy and that guy. And I called him on that years ago, maybe 2022, when he's on somebody else's show. And I told him, I said, when did you ever see Joey Lombardo? What was the last time you saw him? I put in the comments of Gary Jenkins' show. And he turned around and said, I saw him riding his bicycle just before he was arrested. And he was in his 60s then. And I said, yeah, okay. And then he said, most of the information I have, I get from people like you. And thank you, Red, because you're a lot of good information. Well, now the guy's got a totally different attitude about me. He doesn't like me. So, Dave and Wolfie, you heard right. I was pissed. And I probably still am. And I'll tell you why. I don't know anybody that has the nerve to even say that even in my presence or around me or lives close to me. It's not true. And we'll see what the courts say. As far as I'm concerned, that's slander. Bambi, everybody knows New York. Nobody really knows in the Midwest. Some of our people do. And as far as I'm concerned, people, the FBI and several other people say I'm a walking encyclopedia on Chicago, mobsters, and what happened back in the day. That's what it was. If you have people that are interested, Bambi, let me know and get in touch with me, and maybe I'll do a podcast with you. Christina Morris, you reported his channel to YouTube, Red. I don't know what you told them, but they didn't take it down, Christina. It's still up there. I guess YouTube really doesn't care. Bambi, so many of my characters are from New York, and they have no idea the names I talk about from Chicago. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. If you're talking about family secrets, I was there. I testified. So you're talking about Frank Calabrese, or you're talking about Kirk Calabrese, or you're talking about Joey Lombardo, or you're talking about Paul Shiro, or you're talking about Tony Spilaccio, who was a very good friend of mine, probably one of my best friends in life. Bambi, this is from Detective Story Homicide. This guy knows me, Bambi. He's a good man. Bambi, I encourage you to buy Red's book if you haven't. We've had some really fun conversations, and we really have. Thank you, guy. Bambi, if you want my book, you can get an autographed copy. All you do is, it tells you right here where to get it on below on the bottom here. It's at redwemet.com, and I will send you an autograph. I'll make it out to whoever you tell me to make it out to. That's why he said. That's why he said maybe you should read the book. I've been on a lot of podcasts. I think the first one I started out on, it was in 2016. It was Gary Jenkins. That was Gangland Wire, and Gary had just a podcast. It wasn't a YouTube thing like this. So that's what it was. And I went on and went on and went on. I will drop you a comment after you stream. You can drop me an email, or if you're on Facebook, you can go through Messenger, but you can drop me an email at redwemet.com or not.com, redwemet, redwemet, WEMETTE at gmail.com. Sorry. But if you leave me a number, we can talk on the phone. I do a lot of that. Michael Hacker, who is telling the truth, Frank or Kurt? Kurt. Kurt is telling the truth. Frank has been lying. Gary in Kansas City, he is great. He's a good friend of mine. Gary's a real good guy. Very nice guy. But Michael Hacker, who's telling the truth, Frank or Kurt? Kurt is. He just is. Give me a buzz, darling. We can talk. Or leave me a number. At any rate, I liked Kurt's first expose on his brother. But I had some beefs with Frank Jr. a long time ago. He was talking about his book. It was his book. And Paul Pompian was the one that put it together. And Paul Pompian knew some real tough guys. There were some tough guys from New York that were really tough. And some entertainers that were tough. It's just the way it was. Okay, baby. You know where Hoffa's buried? I asked that question. Nobody knows where Hoffa's buried. Nobody's ever going to know where. I don't even know that he's buried. He may have been incinerated, or he may have been chopped up into little pieces. But there are no remains of Jimmy Hoffa. I can guarantee you that. I mean, the people that I knew that were with the Teamsters pension fund and like Alan Dorfman, people like that, we used to just look about and say, there is nobody. There is nobody that knows. And I met Jimmy Hoffa in 1968, and he was quite a guy. Tough guy, another tough guy. He was tough. He was a short, squatty guy and a real boxer. Very tough guy. Since we're talking about tough guys, he was one of them. But I don't think we're ever going to hear about what happened to I don't think we're going to hear about what happened to Jimmy. Jimmy's gone. When I went to Philomato one time and I asked I said, there's a cop friend of mine that's asking about a guy by the name of Pork Chop. And he said, I haven't heard that name in years. And this was like in the 70s, 76, bicentennial year, around 76. And he said, we don't even talk about that guy. And he got a little bit suspicious. He didn't know I was an old mole for the FBI. And he said, who asked you that? And I told him, I said, a cop I know. He's dating a girl from the neighborhood, and her father disappeared. And her father was called Hambone or Pork Chop. And he said, they never even found a thumbnail from that guy. And he smiled at me. That was the end of that. At my feet. My pup is at my feet. The Genovese family, are you kidding me? They had a big stake in Chicago. As a matter of fact, Marshall Cafano had some very, very close dealings with the Genovese family, going all the way back into the 40s. My pup is just laying here. You know what they say? Leave sleeping dogs lie. Oh. Bambi, I had no idea. I read on the FBI report, Sal as a Hoffa killer. Now, they have a lot of people on different FBI reports that were suspected, but no. Whoever it was, now this is my own personal belief. I think Tony Pro had a lot to do with it. Provenzano was, and he was very much involved with. He just was. Yes, there's something New York and Chicago had together. Frank Costello and Tony Accardo used to go deep sea fishing together. Wolfie snores and kicks me at night. This guy don't snore and he don't kick me. As a matter of fact, I've taught him to be very quiet. Many people your age in New York, that life told me that the two brothers didn't call it. Two brothers didn't. Can't remember their names. Okay. I'm 76 years old, and I can tell you now, I remember more than my name. I can remember dates, places, things that took place in Chicago, and a couple things in New York. Not many. I did go to 54. I believe that was 1977, if I'm not mistaken. No, Tim, I didn't know anything about anybody from Detroit. Neither did the people I was around with. Bambi, but they were two brothers from New York in their 20s. Don't know. I really don't. I knew the bad guys in Chicago, that's all. Any rate, hey, we kicked off more than an hour, folks. And I want to thank all of you for coming by. Scott, what kind of car am I driving this day? Scott, you saw it when I put it up on what you call it, on one of my live streams. I'm still driving a Lincoln. I'm an old guy that I like those American cars. I like the Lincolns. It's been there. Bambi, I watched the live stream. Remember, you watch. Mine are all live streams. I did do some Red Bedtime stories and stuff like that, but they're all, I do live streams now. That's all I do. I don't put them together. I go on other people's shows, but that's just the way it is. You're not. No, and it's okay that you answer. Most of the people in here could tell you exactly where I live. Most of the people here would be glad to tell you, Bambi. I left Chicago on September 15th, 1988, when I was just about 40 years old. And I came to Florida. And I've moved around in Florida. First place I went to was Sarasota. The second place I went to was Palm Beach. And I lived in Palm Beach for a while. And then I moved up here where I live now. I'm up in the Panhandle. what they call the Emerald Coast. Some people also call it Redneck Riviera. I live in Panama City Beach, Florida. It is hot, 85 degrees right now. It's comfortable, and I love it. No more white stuff. We had a little white stuff this year, not much. So it's a long time. Yeah, it has been a long time. I went back for a couple trials. The last time I was there for a trial was Family Secrets in 2007, which, if you haven't heard of Family Secrets, it was a major trial, very major. It crippled Chicago. And you are in Iowa. What part of Iowa are you in, if I'm not giving away your location? I don't want to give away your 20. I have friends in Panama City Beach that go there for 3 months every year. It's snowbirds, yeah. Are you talking about Frank Calabrese? You're in Des Moines. I have friends in Des Moines. It's the capital. I know pretty much. I had a lot of dealings in Iowa. Okay. Well, I hate to say this about Frank, but he's not dead, so I can say it. Frank embellishes so much on the truth. It was pathetic. And I will give you one part of it. You said you bought, or he gave you a book, or he autographed your book. He was doing his internship at the Las Vegas museum, the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. But I had my beef with him many, many years ago, Bambi, when he was with Paul Pompian. Paul Pompian paid for that book. The real authors of that book are the Zimmerman brothers. And there's a lot of people that it's not exactly accurate. Giving a good example, he did a lot of drugs. As a matter of fact, he talks about one of the thing that I called him on originally, because I didn't know too much about the guy. He was under the radar, but he talked about he collected from all the porn shops in Chicago, and I called him out on that. The man that he was working with, Paul Pompian at the time, was going to put out a movie, and he paid for the book. He paid for the expensive authors, and Paul died. Paul died in I forget the year now, but it was on Christmas Eve, because I had called him and his wife answered the phone. And Paul was actually going to put out the movie Family Secrets. And that's why there will be no movie, because Paul owned all the rights to it. And my uncle is Vincent. Okay. Most people are real guys that were involved. They don't change it. They tell it the way it is. That's the way it is. Getting back to Frank Calabrese, in his book, he talks about almost $500,000 in cash he stole from his father. He didn't. Kirk Calabrese got on the air not too long ago. He's done 2 or 3 interviews. Did one with Gary Jenkins not too long ago. And but before that, he was on White Soft, Underbelly, and a couple other places. And he turned around and said, it was over $1 million. He stole over $1 million in cash. And my father was going to make him pay it back. And that's why he turned my father in, because he didn't want to pay the money back. And that's his own brother talking. And I remember his brother at Family Secrets, he pled out. You don't have to be a fan of anybody. You don't have to be a fan of mine. I got a lot of anti-fans. But I don't, I'm just honest. You're right. You're right. You're Italian. You understand. You don't steal 600G from your dad. That shows you're a real character right there. Yeah. And his father had much more than that. And Frank's attitude at the time was, he's not going to miss it. He's got so much. And now his attitude, it changes. And that's what his brother's going on podcast and talking about, Kirk Calabrese. But now he has the attitude like, I'm not putting up this anymore. J Babe. Hey, Red, you think Paul Castellano hit was wrong because there was no sanction or agreement? No. I think everybody agreed afterwards they didn't hit Gotti, so I think they all agreed it at the time. Bambi, don't get me wrong. I myself was no angel, but I robbed rich companies. That's a common thing. Some of the best thieves that I've known in my life and conmen, they would never take from an individual. They would take from a corporation or something that was insured where nobody was really going to get hurt. And that's what I call a victimless crime. No, you never take from family. Never take from family. But things are different. You're right. Things are different. When you were 16 and you got caught, it's a good thing you got caught. You got a felony charge. Well, you can have it expunged now if you didn't plead guilty to it. You learn your lesson. I, on the other hand, there is no loyalty in that. Zero. You're right. There isn't any. No loyalty amongst thieves either. Yeah, his story changed, Jono. His story changed over the years. Originally, what was owed to him, and then he took more. And he went back and got more, and he went back and got more. But anybody that takes money and buys, I don't know, $500,000 in cocaine, I mean, that's a lot of money, a lot of cocaine. And if you're putting it out on the street, it's, it's bad. Even the guys in Italy ratted out. Let me give you a little background on me, Bambi. I was after I got out of the Marine Corps, I served Vietnam. After I did that, I was tending bar at all these outfit places in Chicago, and I used to move around from one to the other. They tell me what to do. And what happened was, I went to an FBI agent who used to come around and give me his name, John Osborne, and I called him up. It's in my book. What I did was call him up, and I said, I'll feed you what I can, but it'll be on my basis. I'm going to run on my terms. So you're very welcome. Believe me, I did it for you and other people like you. I didn't do it for me. Bill Price, William Price. Red, I think you're a tough gentleman. Maybe I was at one time, physically. I'm not physically tough anymore. Mentally, I am. Maybe I have an attitude problem. I don't have a problem with helping the FBI. I didn't have a problem with it either. And everybody's asked me on interviews and everything else, why did you do it? And I was personally tired of hearing about bodies that were put in trunks and left at O'Hare Airport. They were killing people. And it wasn't sometimes it was over things that were said, or it was over a small amount of money. What is a human life worth? And I looked at things so much different because I saw in Vietnam how cheap human lives were. It didn't matter. American lives, Vietnamese lives, it didn't matter. Life was cheap. It wasn't even worth a cigarette. So when I got back and saw people killing over money or stupid things, I didn't like it. I was very upset over it. You did because I felt it was right. Yes, I did think it was right. And I have no regrets at all. None at all. That's the problem with wise guy. No soul. uh, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to live that kind of life. It really is. I've known a lot of some old timers. Jimmy Couture. Uh, he was the first one I met from Italy. He talked real nice to me. He said, when I come to America, I got to know shoes. He was born like 18 something. And he says, nah, I got 100 pairs of shoes in my closet every day. So why don't you go out to Las Vegas for me and get me a nicer pair of shoes? Jimmy was a great guy. That was my issue. Okay, thank you. Oh, believe me, not just Capone's era. There were a lot of bodies packing up in my era, and like after 1970, right around that area, 68, around from 65 to 75, there was a lot of bodies that stacked up. It was bad. It wasn't just Capone's era. New York is a whole different story, and I even talk about New York in my book. Unlike I compare it to Chicago to New York. And unlike New York, that argues the five families that argue amongst each other, Chicago has one boss, and they don't argue because the one boss lays down the law, and all the other crews do what they're told. Thank you for telling me I don't have to answer this question, baby. Did you ever fear it could be you? No, no. I carried a weapon on me, a 45 in the small of my back for over 20 some years. The police never bothered me. Nobody else did. Did the thought ever go through your mind, your head? And if so, how did you deal with it? No, it never did. I had a lot of what ifs in my mind. Like when I was videotaping Frank Schweiss, I thought, what if something goes wrong? And really, technically, if something did go wrong, I probably wouldn't know about it till later. It would have been two shots in the back of my head or something like that, or somebody would have grabbed me and taken me someplace and tortured me. But the bottom line was I had a backup plan. And the backup plan is if Frank gets, goofy on me, my partner was going to blow him away. And I would call the police and say, hey, we just murdered Frank Schweiss. And he was known as the Babe Ruth of Hitman. He was known by the police, by the news. Everybody knew him. And everybody was afraid of him. Even the cops were afraid of him. But he used to come and sit in my apartment with me every week. We'd just hang out together. We'd go out and have dinner together, stuff like that. It was just the way it was. You couldn't, no way. Yeah, well, not everybody's made to be what I did. Believe me. The telephone's telling me. Adam's calling me right now. Thank you. I'm very brave and tough guy. I don't know if you can. Oh, I laughed too much. I woke up the beast. Oh, hold on a second. The beast is awake. Okay, down. Yeah, you want to play ball? Go ahead, play ball. uh, Temperone, do you think Frank would have shot you on the spot? No, I don't think. He didn't carry a gun. Frank never carried a gun unless he was going out and do some work. That was it. He was too afraid of carrying a gun. As far as punching him in the head, yeah, I could do that. I could wrestle with him to the floor. But if he got crazy on me, I had a backup man there. He would have put at least one in his head. You have to be a badass to be a Marine. It helps. It helps. And if you're not when you go in, you are when you get out. That's just the way it is. I went in 1965, and I would say I was 17 years old. And I would say the toughest thing I ever did in my entire life was going through Marine Corps boot camp. The hardest thing, other than that I did in my life, was coming home alive in one piece. That was tough. No offense, but anyone that can chat or host, I never got a good impression from Frank. Well, that's very nice that you told me that, because it says that my opinions are not exactly wrong. He just comes across as shady. He always has. I've never really. I'm talking at least 20 years ago, 25 years ago. He since 2002, I didn't trust anything he said. At the beginning of Family Secrets, Mitch Mars came down to see me in Florida, and he said, "Hey, Brad, we need you to come up and do this thing." And I said, "What are we doing?" He says, "Family." He didn't even tell me what the try was at the time. But what happened was I got there, and before I got there, he debriefed me, told me what he wanted. He wanted my testimony. He wanted me on the witness stand. And he wanted me to, at that time, they thought they were going to try Schweiss. And I'm what you call an expert on that. But anyway, it didn't take off. The indictment came down, I believe, in 2005. And they were supposed to have the trial in 2006, except Joey Lombardo and Frankie Schweiss went on the lam. And they didn't catch him until 8 months later or something like that. And so then they postponed the trial until 2007. And then Frank died in 2008. And there was no trial for Frank. And it just was the way it was. Bambi, your girlfriend who met him in Las Vegas thinks he's the nicest guy. Well, his brother will tell you, Kurt, or his wife will tell you. His wife is on YouTube. Watch Lisa on YouTube. She wrote a book. Her name is Lisa Swan. She used to be Lisa Calabrese. Let her tell you, Bambi. Look on YouTube. Look it up. Lisa Swan. His wife, his ex-wife, she'll tell you. He never took care of his children. He never took care of anybody. Whatever it was, it might have been a junkie vibe, might have been a lot of things, but that's the way it was. Some people just give off that vibe. Hey, I know exactly what you're talking about. He caught me that way in the beginning. I'm good at reading people. And he caught me that way in the very beginning. He's never addressed me with any corrections that I've corrected him on. Scott H. I spent a half a day with Frank Calabrese. He's a nice guy. That's not the issue. According to Frank, he lied a lot. He did. Or Kurt. Yeah, he did. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I knew different a long time ago. No, you can't trust anybody that lies. I mean, If they're gonna, that's something else. I've been going through this with different people, Bambi. Um, for years, I've been saying, I asked a lawyer that worked for me a long time ago. Uh, his name was Howie Gilman. I said, Howie, I said, do all thieves lie? And he said, yeah, now that you mention it, they do. And I said, well, then do all liars steal? And he went, that's good of you, kid. You put the two of them together. I never put it together that way. He said, yeah, they go hand in hand. And ever since then, and that was way back in 1975, ever since then, I've always put it that way in my mind, very much. I am. Hey, Jack, how you doing? He's guessing. That's my thoughts. Account on the Giancana murder. It's a guess. Nobody really knows. And if I knew, or one of the guys that was talking to me knew back in the day, because we used to talk about all different kinds of murders, I'd listen while they talk. I would have retained it. And definitely, Marshall Cafano would have known. He was Sam Giancana's right hand man. That's why he sent him out to Vegas. But yeah, Marshall would have known. And Marshall just shrugged his shoulders when it happened. Nobody knows, Mr. McShane, John McShane. Nobody really knows. Bambi, nobody knows. And nobody ever will know. My personal belief, I was told by somebody a long time ago that Tony Spilaccio did it. He only lived like, a few doors away. And he was capable of doing it. He was a liability. I'll tell you the story real fast, if I can. At that time, he was supposed to, in 48 hours, he was supposed to be in Washington to go before the Senate committee. And I knew the police officer that was in charge of the surveillance that was going on. And I asked him, I said, who pulled you off? He says, I don't know. We got a call from downtown, and he told me to pull off my men, and they did. So my opinion is that it wasn't any outfit guys that did it. It was a contract CIA agent. That's my opinion. But it's just a guess. Nobody really knows. There were a lot of suspects. Butch was a suspect, but there were a lot of suspects. I believe it was a contract agent. And he was meeting with him for some reason. Yes, definitely. All the spooks that I ran into, believe me, they were problems. Every one of them was a problem. Possible? Yes, very possible. Obviously, John, he was cooking for his guest that was coming. He knew the person was coming. Why was he in the basement? Why was he cooking? There's a lot of things. I know for a fact Roselli didn't do it. Frankie Schweiss killed Johnny Roselli, and that was down in Florida. And from his account, what he told me on videotape, I've got it on tape. The FBI has it also. What happened was rigor mortis had set in that night, and they didn't kick him out into the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, in the drum till the next day. And at that particular time, they sawed him in half because he was stuck. They couldn't bend him over to put him into the drum. The heat and everything, it was bad. So they kicked the drum out into Frank lived in Hollywood, Florida, on the beach. And they kicked the drum out, and it went out with the tide, but it went around and came back in Key Biscayne. and his body was found in 1977 on Key Biscayne. All those people were involved in the Kennedy assassination, and that's a proven fact now. Every one of them were involved in the Kennedy assassination. After the release of the papers, FBI documents, you can see that Chucky Nicoletti was there. He was killed same time. They all were killed about the same time. One thing about Roselli was he testified before the same Senate committee. They called him back. And that's the way it is. How dirty is yeah, the CIA has always been dirty. Before that, it was the OSS. And the CIA will probably disappear soon because the people, the players that are there are leaving the CIA, that aren't retiring. They're leaving the CIA and going to the NSA, National Security Agency. So it'll be that way. Thank you for your endorsement, Tim. Yeah, that was Sam Giancana's baby that there was a problem with. And testifying against that again would be a problem. Anyway, if you were born in 1978, wow, hear about the CIA really blows your mind. Yeah, 1978. I was really going strong back then. 1978. Crazy year. And if you were born that year, probably until you were 16, 17, you didn't even know what was going on. So you go to 88 and add a few years to that. You heard your mom talk about the stuff when you were a kid and you thought, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. I kind of lived a part of history. Bambi, if I'm going to let this, it's an hour and a half. I'm going to let this show go now. I've never run one this long. And like I said, if you want to get in touch with me, dear, leave me a number. You can email me at my email address, which I gave you before. Or you can, contact me in any way you want. Leave me someplace to contact you. And you're in Iowa. I look at your show too. Very nice to speak to you, and I will be hitting you up. Thank you, dear. I'm gonna go look at your channel when I get off here. Good night, Red. Oh, Midwest. Good shit, Midwest Lee. How you doing? Don't forget, folks, hit that like number. Like button number. Oh, dear Lord. It's Red We Met. Out.
The combination of the videotapes and We Met's testimony resulted in the conviction of 2 men on extortion charges. One of them was Frank Schweiz, known in syndicate circles as the German, a feared mob terrorist and a suspect in a number of gangland murders.
He was described to me by other outfit individuals as the most feared hitman. And as he said to me, my reputation precedes me, son.